You're listening to the Everything Jewish 10 Minutes at a Time podcast, where you'll learn about every Jewish topic imaginable in about 10 minutes. And before we start, let me say, yes, I know my Hebrew pronunciation sometimes sounds like a GPS trying to say street names in another language. You know the voice that says, turn left on Shana Na 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 Drive? Yeah, that's me when I try Hebrew. So just laugh when I mess it up. Today's topic is the Book of Numbers, or as it's called in Hebrew, Bamidbar, which literally means in the wilderness. And honestly, that's the perfect title because this whole book is basically the Israelites wandering around the desert, kind of like that one family on a road trip that refuses to stop and ask for directions, even though Google Maps is right there. Numbers is the fourth book of the Torah, following Genesis, Exodus, and Leviticus. And it serves as the continuation of the story of the Israelites after receiving the 10 Commandments. It's part history, part law, part census data, and a lot of drama. So why Numbers? Good question. The name actually comes from the big censuses at the beginning and middle of the book. Yes, censuses. The Israelites loved counting their people almost as much as Netflix loves counting how many people watched that new show. But unlike Netflix, where the numbers are kind of mysterious, these were detailed head counts of all the tribes of Israel. Each tribe is listed by name, by family, and by how many soldiers they had ready for action. It's kind of like fantasy football, but with actual tribes. The census served as a way to organize the people for both travel and warfare. Think of it like making a giant spreadsheet so you don't lose track of anyone. The Hebrew name Bamidbar captures the setting, the wilderness of Sinai, while the English name Numbers highlights the data. Both titles tell you what you're in for, wandering and counting, with a side of grumbling. Numbers isn't just a desert road trip. It's also a story of leadership, mainly Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, trying to keep everyone together. Spoiler alert, it does not go smoothly. Imagine being the group leader of a bunch of tired, hungry people who keep saying, "Are we there yet?" But instead of being in a minivan, you're managing hundreds of thousands of people in tents. That's Moses' life. The Israelites constantly complain about food, water, and leadership. At one point, they demand meat so strongly that God literally sends them quail until they can't stand quail anymore. It's like when you beg for pizza every night, until suddenly, pizza becomes the enemy. The book also includes major rebellions against Moses' leadership, including Korach's famous uprising. It's messy, dramatic, and shows how hard it is to be a leader when everyone thinks they know better. One of the central themes in Numbers is trust, or more accurately, the lack of it. God has promised the Israelites the land of Canaan, but when they send spies to check it out, 10 of the 12 spies come back terrified, saying the land is full of giants. Only Joshua and Caleb say, "We got this." The people panic, lose faith, and suddenly it's like the world's biggest group meltdown. As punishment, God decrees that this entire generation won't enter the land, and they'll wander the wilderness for 40 years until their children are ready to inherit it. Imagine flunking a group project so badly that the whole class has to repeat the grade, except the grade is 40 years of wandering. It's both tragic and symbolic. Numbers is teaching that trust in God and persistence are non-negotiables in the Jewish journey. But it's not all doom and gloom. Numbers also has moments of triumph and beauty. Take the story of Balaam and his talking donkey. Yes, you heard me right. Talking donkey. Long before Shrek, there was this biblical donkey who suddenly starts speaking when Balaam tries to force it to move. The donkey sees an angel blocking the path while Balaam doesn't, so the donkey refuses to budge. It's both comical and profound, showing that sometimes animals perceive divine truth better than humans. It's one of those wild biblical moments that makes you think the writers had a sense of humor. And Balaam himself, who was hired to curse Israel, ends up blessing them instead. So, even when outsiders are brought in to harm the Israelites, the plan flips around. It's almost like a plot twist in a Netflix drama. Another highlight is the organization of the Israelites' camp. The tribes are arranged in a square formation around the tabernacle, kind of like the world's holiest campsite. Each tribe has a designated place, with the Levites at the center protecting the sacred space. This isn't just ancient logistics. It's a symbol of order community, and God's presence being at the center of Jewish life. You can picture it like a massive festival ground, but instead of music stages, you've got sacred rituals. The arrangement shows how structure and holiness were meant to go hand in hand. Even today, this idea of community centered around Torah and holiness carries into synagogue life. The camp in Numbers reminds us that spirituality isn't just private. It's a communal setup where everyone has their role. Numbers also introduces some new laws and rituals. For example, there's the ritual of the red heifer, a mysterious purification ceremony involving ashes that's baffled commentators for centuries. If you think some of today's TikTok wellness trends are confusing, this one takes the cake. There are also instructions for offerings, festivals, and the role of the Levites. But what really stands out is how these laws are intertwined with the people's story. It's not just, here's a list of rules. It's, here's how you live as a holy community while facing the challenges of real life. The laws and numbers are like pop-up reminders on your phone. Don't forget, you're supposed to be a light to the nations, even when you're tired, cranky, and sunburned in the desert. The Book of Numbers also gives us iconic blessings. One of the most famous is the priestly blessing, still recited in synagogues today. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift his countenance upon you and give you peace. It's short, beautiful, and timeless, kind of like the ultimate spiritual tweet. Even thousands of years later, these words are used at Jewish weddings, holidays, and special occasions. They connect us directly back to the desert experience, reminding us that despite the chaos of wandering, there's always a divine message of peace and blessing. Numbers may have its share of complaints and rebellions, but it also offers some of the most comforting and enduring words in all of Jewish tradition. Now, if you're wondering why we should care about a book full of censuses, wandering, and complaining, here's the thing. Numbers is about the human condition. It's about doubt, leadership, faith, and resilience. The Israelites aren't superheroes. They're people just like us, with fears, frustrations, and short attention spans. Reading Numbers is like watching a reality show where everyone is flawed, but you can't stop watching because it feels so real. Their journey through the wilderness becomes a mirror for our own life journeys. We all face deserts, times of uncertainty, frustration, or waiting. The question is, do we trust? Do we persist? And do we keep moving forward even when we don't see the finish line yet? That's why Numbers still matters. So there you have it, the Book of Numbers in a whirlwind desert tour. We counted tribes, dealt with rebellions, faced some giants, listened to a talking donkey, and even walked away with a timeless blessing. Not bad for one book of the Torah. If Genesis is about beginnings, Exodus about freedom, and Leviticus about holiness, then Numbers is about surviving the journey. It's messy, dramatic, and deeply relatable. And with that, we'll wrap up our time in the wilderness. Thanks for wandering with me today. And as always, thank you for listening to the Everything Jewish 10 Minutes at a Time podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, to a friend who might like it, or leave a positive review so others can find the show. Until next time, may your journeys be shorter, your snacks tastier, and your patience with complaining a little stronger. The Israelites.